So, talking about investments, last year, survey respondents predicted that application development and support services would make up the lion's share of priority investments for 2013. And of course, this would have been due in part to a shift of priorities. The question remains, however, as to whether or not this will come true in the new year. We also saw the potential and increased investments from mobile apps from last year's survey. It's over 40% of survey respondents stating that they believe that mobile apps would be made a higher priority in the new year. Based on this, we asked our survey respondents for their opinion as to where the investment priorities did in fact land for 2013 and where they would go for 2014. So, comparatively, with the exception of mainframe migration and reengineering, we have seen across-the-board increases from the previous year, but here's some highlights. For one, infrastructure investments was predicted to decrease in 2013, as mentioned, but in fact it did not. It did in fact remain a high priority, and custom application development remained a top priority over the previous year as well, with 66% of survey respondents ranking as a top priority in 2013. And mobile app development as a subject in itself beat expectations from the previous year from a priority standpoint, with 44% stating that investments in the development of mobile apps is in fact a top priority this year. Ashish, I'd like to bring you into this. There's some interesting takeaways from this one. Would you care to address this?
Sure, George. So first, let me comment on the top spending areas as reported by the survey participants. Application development was the biggest actual spend area in 2013, and it's also the biggest predicted spend area in 2014. The same holds for application testing. Now, I think this is really indicative of the demographics of our survey participants in terms of the industries that they're from. Right, 26% of our survey respondents were from the financial services sector, and as you know, this sector traditionally accounts for 50% of worldwide IT spend. So I think IDC's estimate for 2014 was about $215 billion by banking and finance for 2014. And really, since these players tend to be very high on custom application development, the results of the survey are not at all surprising. Last few years, particularly after the downturn in 2008, many of the banks and capital markets firms were, in a lights-on kind of mode. They weren't making big investments. And I think what we're seeing now is they're back to investing on their core applications, scaling them as the volume of business picks up. Let me address the mobile app development point next. So, at 55% from the survey, mobile apps and service-oriented architecture were the second biggest predicted spend areas for 2014 by our survey participants. Again, not surprising, smartphones and tablet computers were the fastest growing hardware segment last year, and that's expected to continue next year, anywhere 12 to 18%, which is way ahead of the rest of the hardware sector if you compare year on year for the past 5 years. So, making existing applications available both to employees and customers is very high on the agenda of corporate IT departments, particularly in consumer-oriented businesses. So while they continue to re-architect existing apps to the service-oriented architecture, so it's easier for a variety of endpoints to consume them, mobile app development is almost completely new. It's been going at a pace last year and the same next year. I'll address the infrastructure issue with the last. As you pointed out, in our 2012 survey, 59% of the participants had reported current year infrastructure spending, but only 44% had predicted an increase for 2013. By contrast, 56% of the 2013 survey participants reported an increase in infrastructure spending, which was sort of a little, it was counter. But again, if you really look back at this, it's not surprising that actual infrastructure spending remained high. The economy has been picking up, computing capacity growth is being provisioned. But I think you'll see a key difference between the way infrastructure investments used to be directed, which was at in-house data centers. I think that's changing, and the shift is increasingly these investments taking place in cloud service provider data centers.
It's a very interesting take, especially in covering the infrastructure side. Definitely interesting. Thank you very much for that, Ashish. Appreciate it.